I am lost. Running a Fever, episode 99. Topic for today, life and destruction. Good morning, and my name is Michael Davis. I've had quite a bit of change and success in my 53rd year of existence on this planet. I reduced my weight dramatically. My whole wardrobe has changed from a 2XL to an L or perhaps an M. I reduced my waist size by at least 5 sizes, 10 inches plus. Blood pressure's gone down, energy's gone up, increased my muscle mass. I mean, all the things that, have just made my health much, much better. And my life is much better. And it all started with loving my life enough that I wanted to make it last as long as possible. I do love my life today, and I have to tell you, this may be a little more adventurous than the usual episode because I'm lost. I am lost. And it all started with a great idea that I would go to the Mud Creek Trail, where I've been at least once before, the Mud Creek Trailhead, and head for a branch that I knew was there that connected, so the sign said, to the Lake Fayetteville Trail, which I was very familiar with. And I found out that there's no actual trail. There's this bar off the Mud Creek Trail, and it takes me to a point at a sidewalk and says, all right, head on up this way if you want to go to Lake Fayetteville. It's not really a trail, it's just a sidewalk. So it's kind of like just parking somewhere else and walking on the street instead of driving to one of the convenient parking locations around the Lake Fayetteville Trail. So I find myself, I think, and as soon as I got to the big street, I was pretty sure I knew where I was. It was Vantage Drive. So, Vantage Drive and Joyce Boulevard. I know this goes straight to Veterans Park. And unfortunately, my family knows, and anyone who knows me really well, that I am not gifted at ground transportation. The fact that I have made a living transporting things at times in my life is another miracle. Gift from God in times when I needed that income, because I just can't do it. I mean, I just get lost. And honestly, air navigation, not that much better. I mean, there are rules, and obviously you don't just go up there in the air kind of looking around, especially when the weather's bad, which is why, thankfully for the rest of the world, I am not an instrument-rated pilot. When I was taking my instrument test, let's just get off on this tangent all the way, subject topic navigation not also being one of my gifts, I went up with this old guy, the FAA tester in San Diego, California. And he told me where to go. This is the usual thing. I'd been practicing with my instructors, passed the ground computer-based exam with flying colors. And I've got the hood on, which prevents me, at least prevents honest people, from looking out and seeing where I was. I don't know if it was actual instrument condition, because with a licensed FAA examiner in the plane, it wouldn't necessarily have to be the case. I certainly wasn't instrument rated, so it wouldn't be anything to do with me. But anyway, told me which way to go, and I looked at the navigation charts, set the radios, or maybe he did not set the radios. And he ended the exam and told me that I was headed for Lindbergh Field, which is the very busy international commercial airport right in the center of San Diego, California. Not a good place to be if you are a mere private single engine land VFR certified pilot. And that's what it was. So it's a really good thing that I'm not an airline pilot, which I might have wound up being if I had progressed along those lines. So as I say that, I have found my way back to the topic, and I have found my way back to the trail. I am once again seeing some familiar landmarks on Vantage Drive, and I'm heading steadily towards Veterans Park. But I just think it's interesting that I passed that a few weeks ago whenever I first encountered the Mud Creek Trail, and thought, oh, this will be great. I'll just go along the trail and I'll connect with Lake Fayetteville, and I'll go around Lake Fayetteville, and that will extend my walk. And so there it is. You have to actually just walk through Fayetteville proper without any signs whatsoever other than the usual street signs. So I really hope that I'll be able to find my way back to my car, which is parked way down there in Fayetteville at the Mud Creek Trailhead. Topic for today, life and destruction. Recently I had an opportunity to attend the Ozark Demolition Derby. It was the first demolition derby that I had ever attended, and a new experience for me. And I really didn't think much of it. I mean, really, what is the big deal, But I had been invited to go, and so we went to Demolition Derby, and this is hesitating because I'm in Veterans Park, and it's probably around 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and there's some people here having a picnic or barbecue or meeting of some kind outdoors in the dark. I mean, there are lights around the park, there are lights in the pavilion, but it's amazing. I don't know what's going on. Maybe some kind of run or something that I probably should have known about, but it looks more like a picnic or something. By the way, that section of regular old city roads between Mud Creek and Lake Fayetteville is brand new to me, and despite that I did not bring my action camera to record it, although morning. Navigating, I mean, it is dark, so you got to give me that, folks. Give me the darkness and say that this is a little more difficult. Even though I have been at Lake Fayetteville in the dark, and I've been at this specific area in the dark, I remember it distinctly. It was a very strenuous day. The Long Mile episode. Okay, we're back on the trail and fading away from Veterans Park, where all the activity is, whatever it's for. So anyway, it's a untraveled part of the trail, my feet had never set foot there before, even though my car had been down a couple of the roads. But there will be video that I took at the Demolition Derby, the Ozark Demolition Derby. I recorded one of the heats there. So yeah, I'm going through and it's really crowded and there's lots of food there, like you might expect at a large event. There's kinds of, fair food, candy corn or cotton candy, waffle cones, hot dogs, barbecue, corn dogs, that sort of thing. I'm not sure if there's alcohol, but wouldn't be surprised. It's a good thing that I don't remember if there was alcohol, because, it's a pretty rowdy place. We were sitting in the stands, so the people were relatively well behaved, as I recall. But I was shocked at how I reacted once the action started. And that's when I really learned about this psychological phenomena. And so let me just explain the whole process. And it's different in different places, right? Some demolition derbies are more like a racetrack, and they kind of just go around like a stock car race and just bang into each other on purpose. Not that that doesn't happen in real stock car racing, but certainly not as much when you've got a $500,000 car that you're wanting to win the race with. Has to be a really good strategic reason for you to intentionally crash into someone else. No, the object of this particular type, which is, as I understand it, the classic pure form of demolition derby. And I think some of this comes from Wikipedia, some of this comes from an article which I will attempt to discover. We really hashed all this out in a meeting with the entire Running a Fever production staff, meaning myself and Amy, who I cajoled into helping me prepare for this episode. But it apparently started with a crash at a stock car race, and someone noticed that. And if you've ever been to watched a stock car race or been to one, you know that when there's a wreck, people get really excited and start cheering and stuff, which on its face doesn't make a lot of sense, but because people actually die. But that's what happens. This enterprising man noticed this, and he had flown off the track into the stands that were empty, and noticed that the people on the other side of the track were cheering and just really enjoying it, the spectacle of him crashing. And he realized that if he had done better marketing, he could have filled the stands that he crashed into. And thus was the beginning of the demolition derby. The classic form of which I attended involves no racing whatsoever. There are a bunch of cars, and it just varies. But in this particular one, there were about 8 or 9 cars at a time that would come out into, and this is a rodeo grounds. It's an outdoor rodeo arena, basically, is the main purpose of this place, but they have other events there, obviously, throughout the year. And so it's not a huge field out there. I don't know if it's even as big as a football field. And they have all these cement or concrete K-rails around the place. And then it's just dirt, You know, this is just like you'd have at a rodeo. And these cars come out and they park facing out of the little boxed in area. And you know, there's no official like flag or anything. There's just the announcer says, okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, the crowd kind of chants along, and then the first thing they do is they back out of their position straight into the car behind them and try to damage the other car without causing much damage or causing as little as possible damage to their own vehicle. So wrecking a car is the object of the event, or wrecking as much of the other cars as possible without wrecking your own. And it's survival of the fittest. The survivors win. Good morning.
Good morning.
And they had, I believe, 3 heats. Now, a heat is sort of just several races, kind of like a tournament. So the highest finishers, it usually happens in track and field when there's not enough lanes for all the participants. And so they say, oh, there's 8 lanes, so we can only have 8 in the final race. So we'll do 2 races in the top 4 from each of those goes into the final. So it's the same kind of thing. The arena has limited space, and so the top 4 from the heats, so they must have had 3 because they had 12 in the final round, go on to finish. Plus, makes the night longer and prolongs the entertainment for the crowd there. Of course, the problem with that is your car only has to be running at the end and able to motivate itself along. It can have a lot of other damage in addition to that. So if your car has taken on a lot of damage, you've got a limited amount of time to get it fixed for the final race. And then they had another one worked in there that was called minis. It looked to be like, because most of these cars were like big old sedans from the 70s and 80s, and back when they used to make cars out of metal. And the minis are kind of like little compact cars. They're not really all that little, because that's a disadvantage, but I just noticed one with front wheel drive and so forth. So, and they seem to have pretty powerful engines, but it may just be that they took the exhaust systems off, because obviously you don't need any of that and it reduces your power. So they're pretty loud. And they put big sort of dirt tires on them, or little dirt tires on them. And it doesn't pay a lot. So, I'm sure that they don't put as much money into it as you would in a stock car race, where you can win $1 million if you win the race. The reaction that I had, which was just instinctive, was laughter. When one of the cars revved up its engines and rammed into another car, the crowd erupted in glee, and I started laughing. And just being the type of person that I am, I'm wondering why. What is this? Why does it, make me laugh? Why are there thousands of people, probably, I don't know, 10 to 20,000 people in this arena, and this is in a town of about 70, 80,000. It's a pretty big draw. Why are these people here to watch these people that they don't know? Probably. Some of them were diehard demolition derby fans, I think. Some of the cars obviously had sponsorship. They had the name of a auto salvage company or whatever painted on the side. But it only paid $5,000, you know, and you could obviously come out of it with a car that's not worth much. So there you go. And there was no TV coverage, although actually there might have been TV coverage. There were definitely video cameras there. So I don't know. Maybe there are. Maybe there's a Demolition Derby channel. But the psychology part of it intrigued me. Why do all these people come to watch cars crash into each other? Well, I know when they come, the same reason I came. It was a ball. It was a blast. This is the most fun I'd had in a while. So that's why they come. But why is that? Why is it so much fun to watch this destruction? Why is it destruction that gives life? Reminds me, an excellent actor, Gary Oldman, in a much maligned film called The Fifth Element. And some of these movies I just really like, even though they're, you know, critically bashed. Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich were in that film as well, directed by Michael Bay. It's a very financially successful, critically bashed director. I think he does good work. Anyway, Gary Oldman played an arms dealer, basically a evil genius type guy. But there was some humor about him. And he had a southern accent. Can't remember the name of the character, but he had Jean-Baptiste was in his name. He had like 5 names or something. And someone was talking to him about destruction. And he says, look at this. Picked up a glass of water and he says, look at this glass of water. Serene, still, quiet, boring. And then he dropped it on the floor. And the water went everywhere and the glass went cracking and so out of nowhere came all these robots with little brooms and dustpans and mops and stuff, cleaning up automatically all this mess on the floor. And he said, when I break something, what an amazing display of life ensues. And so his point was destruction brings about life. And I've seen this in the world. It's true to an extent. There is still a popular belief that war is a great economical venture, and this is a fallacy. It is profitable for some people who don't have to pay the price and merely have to help clean up. Or, they basically provide the means of destruction. It's profitable for them, hardly profitable in terms of the priceless loss of life, obviously. And there are other resources that get lost as well, because it's great to build a tank in a factory and all these factory workers and stockholders and everybody gets paid, and then it gets left in the desert somewhere useless. That's a waste. Where does that money come from? Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and surrounding area, causing massive, massive destruction, changing people's lives forever, ending lives. And then afterwards you would hear about, you could go to New Orleans and be a line worker in a Burger King and make 6 figures because there was no workers there. And they needed people to do that because there were plenty of people doing construction and that kind of cleanup, but there weren't people to work in the stores and all the places that they needed support for that. So there was a hurricane, and Burger King workers went from, minimum wage work to 6 figures a year work. As we speak, as you're listening to this, it's probably December or January. The first hurricane that I've heard of any magnitude, named Michael, is making its way through Florida. And there's lots of destruction there. And so it makes it a little more poignant here. There's a part of us that, when we think of someone dying, we think of how much inheritance we're going to get, or how much better off they'll be in heaven. Maybe all of their troubles going away. There's a part of us that sees that destruction and wants to delight in it in some way. And I think there's another part that just wants to get out all of our stress and frustrations. You ever heard that? The term, get out your frustrations. It's not, express your frustrations. Express means the same thing. Nobody ever says inspire your frustrations. Express your frustrations. And I think that's what we're doing. I think that's basically it. We have been given license to celebrate destruction. And we enjoy that because we don't have that opportunity in everyday life, even though as we look around, not only are things being generated, but things are being destroyed all the time. But it's a little uncomfortable, just like death is uncomfortable. And anytime we can laugh about those things, it makes us feel better. And in fact, it's always funnier to talk about something that's uncomfortable. People really want to laugh about it. Racism, religion, all the taboo topics that we can't talk about. The most popular comics just live their entire careers on that stuff because they have figured it out. Anything that we're not allowed to talk about, we want to laugh about, and it feels really good to laugh about it. And so therefore, I find myself at a demolition derby just laughing my butt off and having the time of my life, watching people crash into each other in perfectly good cars. Maybe not perfectly good, but definitely operational. Something you might be able to drive on the road if you put a tailpipe on it. So there you go, folks. Philosophy of Destruction 101. Thus endeth the demolition department and philosophy department for today. So, thank you for joining me on this adventure. A little more of an adventure than I wanted it to be, but I eventually found the Lake Fayetteville Trail on a beautiful early Saturday morning in October. So keep on keeping the fever, and then we'll talk to you next time.
This is the Padua Podcast Network. PaduaMedia.com.